Welcome to the Connected Campus podcast, where we explore the ways that diverse professionals are working every day to optimize their efforts to recruit, retain, and graduate their students.
Welcome back, everybody, to another wonderful episode of the Connected Campus podcast. So for this one, we are sharing some space here with another higher ed IT leader talking about kind of their background, their career, what they do, how they do it, why they do it, all that good stuff. And as usual, just kind of observations on the waves of digital transformation that are washing over institutions all across the country. So we'll start out kind of as we always do. Brett, if you want to give kind of a introduction of yourself, your professional background, and how you get to be where you are today. And I know we'll kind of dig in a little bit deeper with your background after that.
Sure. Brett Seider, Director of Administrative Computing at Concordia University Wisconsin. Actually was started out as a student worker in the IT department back when I was doing my undergrad there, and I was fortunate enough to have them hire me as their first Oracle/Banner DBA, and that kind of launched my career, and I've been there for 23, 24 years now. Also got my graduate degree there as well. Um, for many years, I was the database administrator, system administrator. Uh, saw a lot of institutional change over that time. And then when my the original director of administrative computing retired, I took over that role in 2018, having gone through many of the business decisions, business rules, business processes. So it gives me a very broad knowledge and extensive history of how we got to where we are today and why we also went there, which is a lot of times I have to help new employees and people we're onboarding. They ask questions and I'm kind of the one they go, ask Brett, he would know. Because it's like, yeah, that was decided in 2005 and we're still doing it. What we're organized probably a little bit differently than some other higher ed orgs, but we basically separate our academic and administrative operations. So what my team does is we manage all of the technology stacks, ERP, CRMs, SAS, that power our back office business process. So financial aid, registrars, advancement, AR, accounts payable, HR payroll. So we manage those servers, systems, and cloud and SaaS implementations as well. And in addition to the IT side of things, we're also functionally constantly evaluating and refining business processes to increase productivity, efficiency, and accuracy.
Yeah, well, that's interesting that you kind of mentioned that idea of like, if you have new employees who might be like seeking context or history or anything, is like that's very much what I do. Like, I like to kind of have that the whole kind of story, I guess, just to I guess satisfy my curiosity, but also it's just kind of helpful just for the uh, understanding how maybe decisions get made or how you can maybe kind of navigate the present moment, is kind of knowing the history. And I guess I say also as a history major in undergrad, it's just it's part of who I am. But yeah, I wanted to ask more about that because I think I always just appreciate we've had a few people on the show over this past year that have similar backgrounds to you, and I think just that unique opportunity, like you said, to have that long kind of longitudinal sort of perspective on the work that's happening. So I think there might be notions about like change and how change happens in higher ed and all that, and it's like we have over a 10-year like yours seen quite a bit of change happening in higher ed. So I'm curious, like, just any reflections on the digital evolutions kind of that have been happening over time at Concordia University Wisconsin, that like either just you've observed or you've been a part of, or just any reflections on kind of your career there.
So yeah, I mean our ERP/student information system at when in the late 90s we were still running off of a mainframe down in Chicago. Okay, so we then moved over to um, the traditional early 2000 model of individual commodity servers, then eventually into VMware, a virtualized environment, and now we're coming full circle back to where everything's going back to what the cloud or the big mainframe, right? That's the way I like to look at it. Fundamentally, it's the same, but that's a digital transformation. But and also for us, the this when I started, we only had three people in the admin computing department. It was a project manager, a finance analyst, and then I was added as a DBA. And now we've added four more people, two DBAs, a systems analyst, business analyst, finance analyst, and a data warehouse architect. So basically, I've seen the technology stack go full circle from mainframe now back to what I'll call mainframe computing again with SaaS and cloud environments and solutions, but also things that just seeing those everyday business processes improve and seeing basically the necessity to provide a five-star user experience across the board at every level, from recruitment to admissions to registration to graduation to alumni advancement, all the way down to the end of the person's career or their involvement as a stakeholder at Concordia University Wisconsin. Um, we've seen applications pop up, different types of portals, different types of engagements that all these different offices do with these other, with depending on where you are in the funnel life cycle of a person at Concordia, and it's just gone from we have two or three systems to where now we have 80 to 100 different integrations and processes designed to support everyone from applicants to students to faculty, staff, and alumni.
Yeah, and I guess that's the idea is that like it I guess I'm trying to sort of reconcile this in my head, but the idea that like, you know, I mean, just the world, I guess, has become more sort of digitally complex, and it's like, yeah, your team has grown, and there's so many more like applications and different things, and but then even at the end of the day, it's like there's still kind of like the same core theories around,
Right.
yeah, like whether it's like a physical mainframe that you know, maybe you're like hardwired into on
Hmm.
premise or somewhere else, or if it's on in the cloud, but 'cause it is that idea. It's like, well, that cloud has to exist somewhere. It's not literally just like in the ether or whatever. It's just, you know, how we kind of interact with it. So it's an interesting kind of observation. But and I think, yeah, I mean that idea that like I guess it's like maybe even like the acceptance of, you know, digital tools and their place and how they're utilized, but then even just like, you know, I guess from what you're saying, sort of the whole continuum of, you know, the student's journey and just all the different facets that, you know, the kind of digital evolutions and transformations have sort of crept into. So that's where you get, you know, just a pretty uh, expansive kind of tech stack and everything, and how are things kind of working together. And I guess you know, I'd be remiss, even I think as if I feel like we've all talked exhaustively about this, but I guess that even just like kind of a brief aside, you know, a few years out, like, you know, you were there well before the pandemic. That was
Hmm.
obviously this catalyst for so much like digital transformation. Like, as you reflect on sort of like where you were kind of leading into that moment and now years out, like, what that sort of like milestone kind of just pivotal moment, like, how did that affect your institution?
Uh, yeah, it affected us massively. I mean, it was the apple cart was turned upside down. Everything that we had learned or known to be this is how things are, this is how things operate, completely got flipped upside down. We went from 5 and 7 year contract lengths to 3 years, and also switched products in the same the different types of products within 2 to 3 years of just implementing them. It's no longer a 1 to 2 year of implementation, and we're going to use this product for 5 to 7 years, and then we'll reevaluate. Now it's we need to implement in 4 to 6 months, and we're going to reevaluate after a year and a half to 2 years to see is this product still working. And there's since the pandemic, there's already been three products that we've different products. I won't mention which, but we've had to basically look at gone through implementation and then had to pivot after it wasn't meeting the needs of our stakeholders internally. So that is something new for us. It's great that there are multiple players in this in the arena for some of these marketplaces and products. Uh, but even when you do all the research and you sit down, sometimes you don't know until you don't know if it's going to meet your needs until you actually start implementing it and using it. And then it's cutthroat from a but I'll say for these other vendors. Uh, they are constantly adding new functionality, new features, staying on top of it, being in the know, constantly listening and reading all the the new documentation and the press releases from these companies is uh, key to keep staying on top of things. And like, hey, did you read this? Did you see this? Oh, we might want to look at that. And also competitive pricing. I mean, having this much competition in the higher ed marketplace is great because we can constantly be looking at different vendors and looking at solutions that best meet our needs and our stakeholders, our students' needs. Really, that's what we're here to serve the student ultimately, and so we want to give them the best experience and the best solutions possible.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, yeah, always good to kind of anchor these decisions and these conversations around that is like, yeah, like any dollar you save in budget and, those sort of things can, be reinvested maybe into, other things for students or just sort of, yeah, just making sure you're just good stewards of the resources that you have and all that. But I think, yeah, really interesting to hear because I don't think maybe I would have presumed it if I had to guess. I would have, thought so. But I think just hearing it directly from somebody is that like that was a huge sort of paradigm shift is just the accelerated pace of sort of evaluating, implementing, and all that. Because I think, uh, I guess I'm just glad to hear that like an institution can be more empowered in these sort of like decisions and everything to find what's going to be the best fit and the best price and all of that. Because I think that is something that could kind of, I imagine, stagnate kind of like innovation or something if it is that idea of like, well, we implement it over this long time and then we use it for a long time and all that. Like the companies themselves maybe aren't as like it's not as necessary for them to be like competing or I guess do you feel like that's maybe like part of it is that like you all are more empowered and then like a byproduct of sort of the competitiveness is just like you're kind of just seeing more new interesting things coming from
Mhm.
these companies, tech companies.
It's a lot of times it's taking whatever features and requirements that you have and facing them off because there's never a perfect product. There's never something that's going to do everything that you want it to do. So you really have to prioritize what you're trying to get out of a product and realize there will be shortcomings with everything. But that being said, what the most difficult thing for me was trying to get some of our internal departments to stop thinking in terms of the sunk cost fallacy. Well, it's like we've spent all these time and resources building this out. That if it's not the right product, if it's not the right solution, let's move on. Let's not try to make it work. Let's not try to, or yes, we've had it for 7 years. If it's not meeting our needs anymore, there's no reason to have a conversation. Let's do a quick, rapid, agile research of the vendors that we need to replace this product, get everybody in the room, make a decision, move on. There's no reason, and then at that point, you have to evaluate within that first 6 to 18 months: is this product working, or do we need to move on from that? And it's you try to avoid that at all costs, but at the same time, moving on and getting people to just kind of rip off the band-aid as a metaphor, that's one of the more difficult things because everybody hates change, right? They don't want to change, and you don't want you do want some stability. So I'm not advocating for, hey, let's change products every 2 to 3 years, right? We'd like to find a platform that we love. We'd like to see something that um, will stick around at our university a while and become what I would call like an internal word where everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. And then we would um, uh, combine that or associate that with quality. So, but that to me has been one of the bigger things is uh, getting people to understand that, hey, we don't have to. Yeah, we made a decision and it was only 2 years ago, but we can move on. We can switch it.
Yeah, and I guess where I was kind of going is that idea that like, yeah, they, I guess now sort of like the pendulum swinging the other way is that like, you know, ed tech companies who may have gotten used to maybe that longer, kind of status quo or sort of like, the kind of inertia, maybe now have to gear up and kind of keep up with sort of your all sort of preferences or demands or sort of, those sort of things. And I think yeah, it's like I guess the idea like it could be an easier conversation of like, yeah, nobody likes change, but nobody likes the status quo either. The idea is like, well, it could maybe make it a little bit more compelling if like this tool is going to get us like so much bang for our but
Hmm.
yeah. So I think yeah, it's just interesting dynamics kind of that have evolved over time. And I in my head with what I kind of wanted to guide this conversation was like, you've kind of had this sort of continuity and sort of through line at the same institution for a long time. So we've looked in the rearview mirror in the past. Now bring ourselves to kind of the present and the future. What do you see kind of on the horizon in terms of like digital transformation impacting your institution? Because obviously there's been a lot of changes that you're mentioning with different maybe kind of core systems or whatever. But what are you seeing maybe on the horizon? Certainly like AI is obviously the thing of the day, or like just whatever else. If it's just like, okay, well, certain things are kind of maybe meeting their expiration date, other things, other systems or tools. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's about evaluating uh, a need versus a want. And it always has been, except now that's, as I mentioned, it's become compressed. We're down to, we have to evaluate these things quickly. We need to be agile. We need to implement them quickly because the marketplace is moving so quick, so fast. Even at higher ed, used to just trudge along. We didn't have to be cutting edge. Now I feel like we have to be close to that. But I think more than ever, when I started, we were about managing the technology stack. We were about keeping servers up. We were about uh, making sure that our VMware environment was redundant. Now with the move to SaaS and cloud, where I feel we've lost some of our clout is the actual business understanding of our own departments. They they get dragged in, or they talk to a vendor and they're like, oh, they said they can do A, B, C, D, E, F, and X, Y, and Z. And I said, okay, let's sit down. And they say they can do it without IT. It's like, okay, sounds good. And so like, we're going to have to sit down and have a conversation with them. Have you considered this or this or this, or what about that? So getting intimate with those departments, their business rules, their needs, what they actually need, how they need to process data, where the data needs to come from, where it needs to go, and understanding. You don't have to, for finance, for example, you don't have to be an accountant to understand uh, the data requirements. All you need to do is have that conversation if you're able to bridge that functional knowledge gap with the technical side. But what I found is those departments need more help than ever navigating all of the vendors in the marketplace. So becoming an expert in your own internal business processing to me is one of the biggest things to digital transformation. Taking those analytics that you get from the apps you're currently using, whatever you can grab data, grab it. Understand how people are using your current systems, because so many times people will find, hey, we're implementing this great new product. It's got this feature. We implement it, we market it, and we look at it. It's like nobody's using it. All right, let's try again. Let's do some more training. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it just never takes off. And then you realize, oh, it was just a good idea. We don't actually need that. It's a cherry on top, but from a productivity efficiency standpoint, it doesn't really move the needle. And sometimes those are things you don't know till the end. But that being said, if you understand the internal business processing and your all of the rules, all the procedures, all the workflows that you have at your institution, and I'm not talking just as from um, the low level. I'm also talking from the high level, understanding why the policy is the way it is, talking to administrators and provosts and things like that, vice presidents, to say, why do you do things this way? Explain it to me. So then when the vendor sits down, you can understand and say, well, we have this policy and it says that we have to, for paying faculty, we have to do this, this, and this is how we're doing it. If you can ask those specific questions when you're looking at different solutions and different implementations, and even just activating a feature on a product you already own, you can much better understand and have an idea whether or not that's going to meet the needs or just going to be a waste of time and basically going through the motions. So that to me is the biggest change in what our IT does. It's not so much about managing the servers; it's about navigating our end users and our departments to the right solution.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of emphasize, and I'm sure if anybody's listened to a lot of these episodes, like that's exactly what we're hearing from so many other higher ed IT leaders is like how critically important that sort of like partnership, that dialogue, and that sort of you know and I guess maybe less so like putting such a fine point on it, but like I feel like it's a undercurrent for sure. But like definitely great to hear that idea of like a culture of like scrutiny. Certainly, a symptom of like that idea of like, well, we need to kind of keep up with the pace of the market and all that. So like part of that is like you said, like let's pull that data, let's evaluate like are people even using it, or are they using it in the way that we envision? And then there might be like another way to be like, well, we have two tools that are using this that can do the same thing, and maybe we can kind of condense things down or consolidate, or there's just could be just that dialogue, that opportunity to sort of just not think that like the way it is sort of some like natural law and it has to stay that way forever and all that. Like we can have this sort of culture to evaluate and scrutinize, and just think very critically and intentionally about what tools are we using for what isn't working out the way that we envisioned it, and what do we need to maybe move on from. But uh yeah, I think just that ability to uh as like a higher ed IT leader, like be curious, because I mean that idea of like you asking like, so like, okay, talk to me about how you do these certain processes and everything. Like it's not even like on its face doing it in like a negative way. It's trying to do it in just a purely curious way, and it could be like, okay, well, let's see what we can do to sort of utilize existing tools to help with that, those sort of processes. Or yeah, it does seem like there is like a pretty major gap in the workflow here that we because they probably like initiated the conversation saying like, oh, we need this new thing, we need the whatever, and it's like, all right, well, let's kind of have that conversation and try to map everything out here. But um so I guess then to kind of build off of that, it's a natural segue, the advice that you would give to other higher ed IT leaders right now. So maybe it's about navigating those kind of conversations or change management, whatever kind of comes to mind, just advice that you would give to your colleagues at this moment.
Yeah, well, it kind of would. I'll echo what I said before. It's basically instead of being managing technology, manage people, manage your departments. Try to understand them as best as you can. Uh, to double down on what I said before, the one phrase, the one answer that I've heard more than 20 or 30 times over the last 5 years. Why do you do it like that? Or what's the reasoning behind your workflow or your process? And if there's any kind of pause and they don't have an answer right away, I know what the answer is going to be. That's the way we've always done it. And that's the absolutely worst thing that yeah, it's the worst answer that anyone could give. It'd be like, okay, then there's no we then let's throw it away. So basically I make them sell me your business process and why it needs to work the way it does. Give me the reason. Does it make more money? Does it save time? Does it serve our students or faculty staff, whatever system we're talking about better? Constantly improving those things and looking at to why things are the way they are. And I thought that's what's gotten lost at a lot of and some of the other schools that I talked to within the Concordia system or sister schools, that it's kind of that they don't know how we got here, and they don't know why things are running the way they are. And constantly asking those questions, getting ahead of it, there's a lot of low hanging fruit that you could take advantage of and improve just using your existing tools without going out and trying to find a new solution. Because sometimes we they come with the pitchforks and torches and say, we need a new product, this just isn't meeting our needs. Okay, it's and then ask the question instead of just, yep, let's start looking. Okay, let's start evaluating why it's not meeting your needs. And oh, did you know here's the manual. Did you know that you could do all these things or build them if you just kind of go config? We'll talk to some of their support and maybe get some training, and then next thing you know, in 6 months, all the things that they needed was right there. You just needed to ask the right questions. So I always say try to work with what you have, but also don't feel like you're locked into that. But that's where understanding exactly what they need. So the advice I give is understand your organization, understand your people, understand exactly why they're doing what they're doing, and then um, how you can help them, whether it's implementing a new product, taking advantage of features that you already own, or maybe retiring some just really bad old practices because that's the way we've always done it. and it serves no purpose. It benefits the juice is not worth the squeeze, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good, I like that turn of phrase. And yeah, I mean, I think just like, yeah, it's time well spent to maybe just be like proactive with kind of having those conversations and having those kind of, discovery meetings around all the functional areas and all that. Cause I think, yeah, on one hand, like, people don't like change, but then like, I think a lot of people just kind of tolerate the status quo, and then they could just be like, well, again, it's just how we've always done it. And it could be like, hey, I'm a fresh set of eyes. Tell it to me, let me know how things are going. And yeah, it might be that there's kind of the decision tree or whatever kind of you want to call it of like, okay, we're starting here. You'd like to be here. Yeah, let's see what existing functionality we can try to take advantage of. Okay, that didn't work. We'll have to circle back. Like you can kind of like exhaust all options before you kind of get to maybe that point of like, okay, we need to complete overhaul of the tools we use, buy new ones, and do all that sort of stuff. But you can also uh, go into a process like that that's more exhaustive with the knowledge of like we earnestly try to figure out and understand everything and see what else we can do. But um yeah, so I like that a lot. I think just really encouraging you know other hired IT leaders to just be uh good colleagues of sort of building those relationships, building that understanding, and building sort of those opportunities for kind of advancing everyone's priorities and goals, and everybody kind of benefits. So
The other advice I can give on that too is also be proactive about it. Don't wait for the problems to come to you. I- Go out and be proactive with your departments. Make it put stick. They try to close the door on you. Stick your foot in and get in there and learn about what they're doing. And that's helped us. That's helped me and the team members on the our admin computing team extensively, and that actually being proactive about it changes the conversation, because instead of being reactionary, you're kind of lending a helping hand, saying, hey, we let's figure out what works best for you. We want to help you. And that has really gone a long way to develop and nurture some of those relationships moving forward.
hmm yeah, absolutely. Well, we will end as we always do with the question that we ask all of our guests. What does a connected campus look and or feel like to you?
A connected campus is one where you don't have to think, or you don't have to worry about where to find the information. To me, it's something where um, you can open an app, open a website, type in a search parameter, and you're going to find what you need. You're going to find the information that you need. It's basically um, it, the way I can think about it, the way I put it, and it's in a coding term. If you have to think about how to code it as opposed to thinking about the logic of what to code. In other words, if you're familiar with the programming language that you're using, you're not thinking about how to do the coding. You're just thinking about what the output looks needs to look like. And the same as this, it's you when you're if I'm a student, if I'm a faculty, if I'm a staff, and I have a question about something, I don't have to think about where to go. I know that, okay, if I go to a single point, or I go to um, the resources that have been given to me, all I need to do, everything is going to be there at my fingertips. And if I need help, it's just a phone call or a chat away.
Yeah, because yeah, I think that sort of experience is a byproduct of things being interconnected and just sort of like it's all kind of in the background. But yeah, like you just go to a landing page, whatever it is, dashboard, type in registration, pulls out the registration stuff, and you can find what you need, and it's very clear. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Of like you don't think about where or how, like, because that's yeah, like that, something like that is like people have gotten too used to like a kind of inadequate kind of system
Hmm.
as they're like, wait, hold on, I gotta like do it over here, but I have to ask it in this way because otherwise it's gonna
Right.
get very confused. And like I think that's my experience sometimes with like university websites, which like just have so much content on them, like, and maybe they're pulling Google results too or something, and it's just like it just gets very jumbled, and you have to try to like, okay, well, what's the page title of what I'm looking like? Yeah, you're doing that sort of deciphering. So I think that's yeah, that's a good advice there. But yeah, so I think those are good kind of sort of guiding philosophies and advice and just other great perspectives from your long career there at Concordia University, Wisconsin. Very much appreciate you hanging out and sharing all that you did for this episode of the Connected Campus podcast.
Very glad to be here. Happy to join you, and it's been a great experience.
Thanks for listening to the Connected Campus. Please leave a 5-star review for the show and share it so others can discover us. Make sure to also subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Connected Campus.